Welcome back to another episode of Unraveled Mysteries, where we dive deep into the stories that have captivated, shocked, and sometimes even changed the course of history. I'm your host, LD Pteloma.
And I'm Monyeka. Today we're tackling a case that became a cultural touchstone, sparking conversations about love, betrayal, and justice. Yes, you guessed it, guys. Today we're doing a podcast on Lorena Bobbitt, or Lorena.
That's right, in the early 1990s, Lorena Bobbitt became a household name after an incident that would forever alter her life and the lives around her. It's a story filled with drama, controversy, and complex emotions that raises questions about domestic violence and the lengths we might go to in the name of self-defense.
Absolutely. We'll explore Lorena's background, her marriage to John Wayne Bobbitt, and the shocking events that led up to the fateful night of in 1993. We'll also discuss the media frenzy that followed, of course, and how it shaped the public perception of both Lorena and John.
And let's not forget the broader implications of this case, how it brought issues of domestic violence into the national controversial and influence discussed around gender dynamics in relationships.
So grab your headphones and settle in as we unravel the intricate tale filled with twists and turns. Whether you're familiar with Lorena's story or hearing about it for the first time, we promise to engage. We promise you to engage in the discussions, and we will leave you thinking longer after this episode ends.
Yep, so let's go ahead and get started.
All right.
Okay, so before we even get started, every single time we do a ghost story, this time I'm going to be reading a story in honor of Carly. It's her book on Amazon, A City of Ghosts and the Beyond. This ghost story is in chapter 5. It's called The Hanging Woman and the Haunted Apartment. So, her name was Alice Francis. Her address was 208 12th and a half street. And that time the house was built, they had moved into in like a week prior to the death. So Alice lived there with her mom. Alice's mother's name was Miss Francis, who had to tell the sad story of her daughter's death. Like, that's pretty traumatic, right? So Alice that day told her mother that she would go to church because the weather was, fairly nice. Her mother then, in return, told Alice she should go too. Allison told her mother, Miss Francis, she would go later with her aunt, Miss Knoll. Um, they both left the house like together around like 10 a.m. Alice went the back way, and Miss Francis went to Grace Lutheran Church through the front. When the mother returned from the home, she sat by the warm stove to warm up since it was getting just a little bit chilly out. It's like a nice day, it gets like cold at night. So Miss Francis happened to look into the kitchen and saw Alice's wrap on the chair, which would indicate that she was home. She also noticed Alice's key in the lock and knew that she had returned home. Alice was very careful when she just never left her keys in the lock itself. So this intrigued Miss Francis to where her daughter might be in the house, and if she was in a hurry and accidentally left hers behind. So Alice had been acting strange lately for the past couple of months. Um, the mother was afraid to leave Alice alone and only agreed to leave her alone on this day since she was going to see her Aunt Miss Knoll while she was at church. Miss Francis started looking for her daughter in the house and called her and walked into each room to find her, and she went through the house and she noticed in eerie silence. She went up to the second floor and there was still no Alice. Miss Francis finally took the attic stairs and walked up. She reached the top of the stairs and she had seen her daughter hanging near a window in the attic. It was an awful, awful scene. Miss Francis told the paper this. She said, I called on my little grandson He ran to get Mr. McKinney on Spring Road to help me get her body down. Alice wasn't well for about 6 months prior to the hanging. Alice worried a great deal about the house that they just brought and was afraid they wouldn't pay for it. Um, when the suicide was discovered, Dr. Lingo Mingle summoned her body was still warm. She had used a piece of her clothesline, which had doubled by passing it through the hole twice in the wall above the window. At the time of her suicide, Alice was 37 years old. Alice went through a divorce about 10 years prior. Alice's depression was getting worse by the years. Alice's own father committed suicide a few years earlier and shooting himself. She had never visited her aunt that day. The street is renamed Reading, Pennsylvania. She was buried in Annandale Cemetery. Someone wondered if she still wanted the very house that she saved up. It was in the process of buying and could not have laid the final nail in her depression. Over the years, people refused to stay in the upstairs attic bedroom, commenting on feeling like a rush of cool air, the covers on the bed getting pulled off of you in the middle of the night. There were years ago for the new occupants of the house. There are no words from them if the ghost activities still haunt the house. 11 wonder if the bedroom is still up there on the third floor, or did they finally just make it an attic space? There is an apartment in a small town of Renholds. The apartment was one time used to be a huge mansion prior to someone buying it and remodeled it to the few apartments. The layout is weird to say the least. The apartments are laid out in an L shape, with few apartments being on the first floor and two apartments on the second floor. All the apartments have their own front door, the very front apartment being the biggest of them all. This is where the ghost story begins and ends at. The year was 1990s when it all first became known that a ghost resided there. The mansion itself was built around 1875. The first owners, little is known of them. The building used to be the country store and post office, and then it was in the inn for a short time. The mansion was sold to the new owners in the 1920s. They used it as an inn and a stagecoach stop for little before they decided to sell. The next owner was an elderly lady who lived by herself. She had bought the old inn at a reasonable price. She decided to let the inn go. The year was 1955 when she bought the property. Miss Hall decided to build a barn on the property to house horses. The mansion was brought back to the beauty through her. Miss Hall was married for a short time prior to buying the mansion. Her husband was killed in a train accident, and she used the insurance money to buy the mansion. She used the barn house horses for profit to keep her lifestyle going without having to remarry, which in those times was a pretty smart move, honestly. Um, she became a hermit, one could say. Like, people barely saw her around town. She had all the had the groceries and other items brought to her house for her, so she would not have to leave at all. Like, that's pretty sad. She also known around town as being kind of eccentric and odd to say the least. Well, yeah, if you're spending a lot of time alone, you know what I mean? Kids would avoid her house on Halloween, and she enjoyed that. Stories started to emerge around town that the mansion was haunted by the old lady who lived there, was into an occult. People made things up to explain the unknown, where she was really seen when she was seen. Miss Hall stayed to herself and barely spoke to people. Now, in November 1981, there was a fire at the mansion. When it was put out, Miss Hall was found in the kitchen. The kitchen was only part of the mansion that the fire destroyed. It had seemed someone used the fire to cover up for foul play. Miss Hall had been stabbed or shot a few times in the chest. The fire was set up to cut up the murder. Schmurder. Her body was so badly burned that they could not tell if the holes in her body were from a gun or a knife. All they could do all they could really say at the time was that a murder, it was a schmurder, and the schmurder tried to cover it up. A safe was reported missing from the house and her car. Since she did not have any family to come forward, the county paid for her funeral and burial. The mansion sat in the need of repair for years. The couple finally bought the old mansion in the late 1980s. She was made into apartments and remodeled the bottom apartment where the fire destroyed the kitchen. The murder went unsolved to this day. Now, the first mention of a ghost came from a young couple with two kids that had moved from the bottom apartment. Not knowing the story of Miss Hall and the murder, they started to report seeing an angry older lady in the kitchen at night. They also reported to the landlady of feeling like they felt like they were being watched in the kitchen. The young couple only lasted a few months in the apartment before they were asked for different places altogether. The next couple who moved into the apartment, and this is all the same apartment, by the way. I got a little confused for a second, but this is all like what's going in this particular apartment. Like, I don't know. I have to stop because obviously there's something going on, like bad luck. You know what I mean? So, anyways, the next couple who moved from into the apartment ended up staying for years until the wife passed away and the husband was moved to an assisted living facility. There are reports of seeing an older lady in the kitchen while we lived there. They felt someone was also in their room some nights. The living room has French doors that close off the living room to the kitchen, and they sometimes slam for no apparent reason at all. One more time they slammed so hard it shattered the one panel on the door itself. The landlady decided it was time to take them out of the apartment for everybody's well-being. Why would she do so? The stove sometimes shut off while you are trying to bake something. The stove itself is gas, so while you are cooking, it is a good idea to stay out of the kitchen. Because once I was cooking on the stovetop and the burner was blown out of the gas and was still on, but the flame was out. It filled the whole apartment up with gas. The landlady had to get everyone out of the apartments while she aired it out. And then she changed everything over to electric so that would never happen again. That was one time the ghost or human error scared her enough to change things around. She seems to be trying to get your attention when she appears, but she also seems to have something to tell you but can't get it out. The feeling of just like despair has felt in the downstairs apartment. Sometimes the older lady seems to haunt the bottom apartment only. Before anyone moves in, the landlady, who still owns the place to this day, explains right away about the place being haunted and it has happened on property. Once in a while, she gets a non-believer that soon starts to see and feel things that are a little bit different in that one apartment. Now, a few people have stayed in that apartment for like a few years. Some people only lasted a few months, and at the end of the day, the place is still haunted by a memory of a time and place that is past and murder that was never solved to this day. The new landlady will never change a thing about the old mansion. She explains the past can be felt there, but the future, if you look hard enough, all the places have a past. Most places, if they are old enough, have a death or murder on the property. This one is no different from the rest. It just has a ghost or two. Mrs. Hall is harmless, to say the least. Hope y'all enjoyed that. Let's continue.
Ecuador, but in Bouquet, I guess Bukai is how they say it. She was actually born Lorena Lenore Gallo. Okay, she was born in Ecuador in 1969, and she was born in the city of Bouquet. And the way it's spelled is Bucay, so I wasn't really sure how they wanted to pronounce that, but I did the best I could, guys. Okay, she grew up in Caracas, Venezuela, with two younger siblings. She did have two siblings. Her father worked as a dental technician, and the family kind of led a middle class lifestyle. After a trip to the United States, which was given to her for her quinceañera, and for you guys who don't know what a quinceañera is, it is like a sweet 15, sweet 16, the coming of age birthday. And the Latin community, it's a very important um, birthday for a young lady to be shown as a woman by her family, and very big extravagant gifts are given. She happens to get a trip to the United States for her quinceañera, and ever since then she's wanted to live in the country, in our country. Through her family, though her family was unsuccessful to attempt to immigrate it with the whole family, in 1987 she obtained a student visa. She to earn money. She actually worked as a nanny to start. Later on, she took a position at a nail salon. In 1988, this is where she meets John. Then he was a U.S. Marine at a club that he enlisted, of enlisted men. At the time, Lorena was in community college, and she was a student in Virginia. John became Lorena's first boyfriend. So this is something I didn't know that I thought was so like kind of
Yeah.
crazy for me. Like I was like, wow, so this was actually like her first boyfriend. She married her first boyfriend, you know?
She was,
It-
yeah, she was a virgin like before she even met
yeah,
him. Like
yes. It was
never.
it was like she had her birthday for her quinceañera. And mind you guys, I just want to throw this out there. In the Latin community, if you're not a virgin, you don't get the quinceañera. Okay. It's literally like this it's a very unspoken thing we don't say out loud as families, but it's you have to keep your virginity until you have your quinceañera. Then your parents allow you to start dating, to date for a husband, not to date to sleep around. Okay. And so she came from a very traditional family where they gave her the quinceañera, they gave her an extravagant gift to go see what life was like in the US, and then she wound up getting a visa. So mind you, as a student, she still, I mean, you carry your virginity as long as you go to be a husband, if you're in a traditional family and you have those beliefs. So
Yes.
so she, yes, she was a virgin. She came over with a student visa. That's how she, and then they wind up meeting. Let me see what else I have here before I hand it over to Miss Mary. Okay, so of course he was her first boyfriend. They began dating, and I'm gonna stop there because then I go into the marriage. But Miss Mary has the background on her husband. So
Oh yes, the stories go back and forth. Like, okay, so John Wayne Bobbitt was born March 23rd, 67. If you don't know, that is an Aries. Okay, and then Lorena Bobbitt, again, Monyeka already said May 15th, 69, Taurus. So Aries meets Taurus. Ah! Okay. Which is funny because I always feel like Tauruses are so chill. Like it's a game changer. So, first of all, like I started my search with a YouTube video on how like they met. So this particular one was like an ABC news story. Everybody that was telling the story, just I don't know. You gotta watch it. It's on the YouTube. Um, so he came on there and he was like, "This whole story is a cover up." So the interviewer's like, "Okay, well, let's start where you want to. What's the cover up?" You know, um, but I want to know like, what's the cover up? So this is what I'm typing as I'm getting into this. I'm like, I don't understand what was going on. Like, things we know. He was beating and raping his wife. She went nuts and cuts off his
Hecker.
roll. It's
I
gonna
know.
have different names today. I don't have a particular one, but so this was getting off like a rough start. I'm always trying to like find my headway with like different stories, and this was and has been and is a popular and highly requested story because this woman went through so much abuse. Um, and also, anyways, so she went critically insane. As the court stated, she did not only cut his dingling off, she threw it out the window. Okay, so, anyways, back to the story. So, John grew up in Niagara Falls, New York. When he was 3, he was taken from his mother, who was a drug addict. She was living on the streets, while his dad was just not in the picture. Like, he never knew his father. He states that his mother had a hard time taking care of him and um, his siblings. So, especially like on the streets. So, his
Of
aunt
course.
took him in, and he was raised with his cousin. His cousin always said he's like a brother. So whenever you watch like videos on this came up a lot. Like I even saw it where the brother was like, "No, we are we're cousins, but we were raised like brothers, and so that's
Yeah.
super
Mhm.
important.
And a lot of people can relate to things like that too. So
Yes, and that's because the family who raised them. They said that it was a big family. There was lots of get-togethers. They went to church every Sunday. There was just a lot of loves. There was a lot of fights because there's a lot of boys in the house. You know what
it
I mean?
happens. It happens.
So John was supposedly, he said he was the peacemaker, but we did not reiterate or go back to that because I'm like, I don't understand.
That
So
came from him too. That came from what he told people that he
yes,
was
so
the peacemaker. I wouldn't really believe that.
his story is so back and forth, and as
Yeah.
you get into it a little bit more, like you'll kind of understand. Like, so he did say that they met at an officer's court, right? So
Mhm, mhm,
the
mhm.
way the story that was, I was watching Lorena and him talk. So the story was that Lorena, she was like, "Oh, he's so handsome. He's just an attractive young man. They had a lot of chemistry. He was a nice guy, and they started dating." She was just swept off her feet. Okay,
Yeah.
so John says that he met her and thought she was just so sweet. She was so shy. He couldn't really understand her at first, so he just handed her his number and was like, "Call me."
Call me.
Uh, yeah. So the
I'm
problem with
sorry.
this was that she was from a completely different country, and her visa was about to go out, from my understanding. And so everything after that was kind of rushed. As a matter of, okay, this is where the stories start getting mixed up. Lorena says that he proposed to her, but he said she proposed to him. So
Yes, this is a very back and forth thing that we have heard
yeah, it's
about
like two
from both sides
stories.
and from their friends.
Yeah, yeah, and that was in the interview too. You had the friends come in. It was like, what the heck? So
Yeah.
her, her like at the wedding, like she said, like her mom was there. She was crying. John says that the marriage was a convenience. He, he, she was like, I love her. He's like, I thought I loved her. And then he said that he ended up proposing and bites a bullet. Or maybe she said, see, Remy, see, now I'm getting mixed up. But either way, they were just back and forth. So he bites the bullet and marries her. And then
Mhm.
after they were married, that's when she said he just became like a monster. So, um, this
So
had,
I just wanted to say something really quick because like now that you're saying it, because the stories are so kind of like, oh, she proposed, oh no, he proposed, oh, this is what happened, or oh, my visa was gonna expire. Like when I was reading where we're at right now, it says that Lorena was claiming that right after, not even a few weeks before, guys. The word few is four. It means four, okay? Not even a few weeks after they got married, she started seeing like the abuse, like violent abuse. Not like, oh, I'm not even on stuff, like abuse. Well,
yeah.
yeah, when we get to these stories where it's like he said, she said this, and oh, well, it was because of an immigration, or it was because she was pregnant. It just kind of is cohesive with how maybe why he was so mad. Because
Yes.
I mean, think about it. When Mary, you and me both have been married. Um, when we got married, that's not how we were thinking. 4 weeks after, we were still in our love guru stuff, you know.
Oh, I love him. He's
And
so
what he
amazing. He took out the trash once.
claimed, exactly, like, and what Lorena claims is that like right after they got married, a few weeks later, it's the abuse started. I mean, yes, everything was kind of rushed because, like you said, they met and then our visa was going to expire and maybe they did I mean, maybe they liked each other enough to get married to start, the dating process while they're married already. But I mean, she really explained when she spoke in interviews and when she spoke to writers from the paper and stuff like that, like she really talks about it happening right after they got married.
Yeah.
So these stories go pretty well with what
Well, it was
the
like,
stories say.
yeah. So, this actually took place in Manassas, Virginia. It's a small town and actually used to be like known for the battlefield, but now it's known for the Bobbitt game. So that's fun. Uh,
Old history, and now the new history is the new gen.
yeah. So, they moved to a home. It was like a nice home area, like neighborhood. until these two came along. That was until dun dun dun.
Now,
Um,
mind you, they were young though. Lorena was 20 and he was 22 when they got married. So
yes.
you remember this, guys, they are still young in the beginning of their mistaking era. Your 20s are your mistakes, you make your mistakes, whatever. Um, and they're married now. So I
So it
just
was
want to throw
like
it out there that we know their ages at the time of their marriage. Lorena was 20 and John was 22.
young, 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 toxic. So it was like a really peaceful, small wedding. Like at first, she came off. They said that she came off so sweet and happy, and John was okay until he was in the Marines. Like he got out of the Marines, he was
Mhm.
released. He had trouble with his income and bringing in money. He didn't want to be seen or painted as like a deadbeat, So Lorena is now the breadwinner. She worked for as a nanny for a lady named Jana. They became good friends, and Jana even said that Lorena would say that Lorena would just do anything to like make her marriage work. While this is going on, John tells instead of working, he said instead of working our way up, she just wanted more and more. She was just so stubborn and selfish. And so they would get into these like stupid arguments like about TV,
Mhm.
like just money was like the biggest thing. Like she's bringing home like a car, and he's like, we had two cars. Like what are we doing? So this is where it gets interesting. So really, very like Monyeka said, it like very shortly after. As a matter of fact, 1 month. Everybody in that interview said 1 month. After they got married, they happened to be on the highway, and the he was driving, and he was driving like zigzag.
He
Like
was
she just.
actually drunk that night, is what I'm hearing.
Oh, really? See, I didn't
Yeah.
hear that, but that makes sense. So he was just kind of like scaring her the way that he was driving. So
Mhm.
she grabbed the steering wheel, and then he punched her. Like the way she was telling the story, I thought that he punched her like in the nose or something. But
Yeah.
then somebody else said it was he punched her in the chest really hard, and she.
Yeah, so yeah, that's the question on where he specifically hit her. I'm pretty sure she said it, but I can't find it either in some of the things that I was looking up. But it
Yeah,
was one of the things where it's like, because we had seen that he was swerving, and I was like, let me look into it some more. They were actually coming home from the plot,
like
and
you're
she was
retarded.
arguing with him about how she disapproved about him drinking so much to where he was kind of like belligerent, and he starts to try to scare her, and then she's trying to like, scared, of course,
Yeah,
kind of, and then he hits her. Now,
yeah.
I still haven't figured out either where he specifically hit her because somebody said the chest, somebody said the face. I
So
didn't
it's like,
know those, but
but like if you think about it a bit, like you're driving in a car,
hmm
and you're like, get off of me. Like, can you
yeah,
really,
he
or
may
you
have hit her in the chest, or he could have elbowed her. I don't know, but I know that there was a
just
punch
hit her
exchange.
head for all we know? You just slapped
Yeah,
her.
exactly.
But she just, she said that she cried just really hard. Like, she was scared because her husband just hit her, and she was just really unfamiliar with this. She like never seen this side of him. Um, he said that there was a jealousy thing as
Yeah, he
well.
claims that she was jealous and that's why there was always these like arguments and fights towards like the more harder fights that they had.
Yes.
He was explaining about how, oh, she's just a jealous woman. This is her tradition from her family. With the women in that lifestyle are like this, la la la, la. Kind of like trying to blame it on her cultural background. But
Yeah.
that he was saying that that's why kind of the argument started, that she was being very jealous as a wife.
Yes. And so it was weird because she like smiled in the interview after that story. I thought
Mhm.
that was kind of weird, but and he just said that she was the one that was jealous and
And
possessive.
initiating fights and things like that, gaslighting him.
Yeah. And so like she would say, this is my man, this is my Marine, and my meal ticket. That's what he said. I was like, there's no way she said meal ticket.
No
Like she.
way. No way. I would not, but no way. Not from somebody who has her background coming from having to go from a student visa and really try to get over here. And then
and then has to go to work.
I don't see
It's like,
somebody being very appreciative of what's going on, and being wanting to be with him and marry him. I don't see somebody calling him a meal ticket, you know?
yeah, exactly. So, while like Lorena, she would say he told me once Marine, always Marine. Then
Mhm.
one time she said that she was on the floor. There wasn't like a lot of details. She just said that she was on the floor and he was hitting her. And then John was like, there was nothing wrong with her. She would just change the story around. And Lorena was like, he would punch her here and there. And then it moved into the bedroom. She said that John told her forced sex excited him. This is where the harlot stuff comes in. It's like, so
Yeah, so okay, so where we're at right now is the abuse is starting. It started with the punch in the car about, him being drunk, waving the car around. And then these arguments start, well, and these are friends saying things too, oh, well, he told us, John's friends are just explaining that she's a John's wife.
yeah,
And Lorena's by herself, but she's still saying the same thing. Like, he just started to get abusive. The more drunk he got, the more he wanted to fight with me. And then we all find out that there's this secret that John's friends had said that they knew he liked, and he had voiced that he liked forced sex. It was like a kink of his.
yes.
This woman didn't know that, and then he tells her that after marrying her. So there was no choice to say no. It was like, let me just please my husband, or maybe she did tell him no, and it was still forced upon her, you know?
Well, it's just like back in the day, like it wasn't a thing for like
Yeah, it
marital.
was very taboo. It was very something like nobody talks about, you know?
Like it wasn't like they were like, this is not a thing because you're married. And then she was like Catholic and she didn't really understand, like, it's like,
Why he liked that. Yeah.
yeah,
She was very
it,
conservative. Yeah.
yes. And so,
Very sheltered too, as well. Yeah. Very naive at that age. This is her first boyfriend. And then all of a sudden he starts to explain to her after that, she marries her first boyfriend. This is so innocent and naive from her side. Like the way it comes out, she was um, a young student. She was very naive. She obviously hadn't dated. This is her first boyfriend. She
yes,
marries her first boyfriend. Like, you know what I'm
yeah,
saying? Like she's expecting love and all these things and these sweet things that she hears about, from her parents and stuff, and very conservative family.
mm-hmm,
And then all of a sudden she gets into this marriage. She gets this guy who's coming out very marinish, very,
mm-hmm,
very strong and strict. And then he explains to her, well, I mean, obviously the abuse starts, and then she's starting to having to cope with her husband hits her. And
yeah,
then to find out that he tells her that he likes that type of stuff. Maybe she didn't agree with it, but it still happened, you know?
yes. So it's like, I mean, even in the interview, like I don't know, it was just like she was just Catholic. She didn't really want to believe like it was not going to work out. Like it
Mm-hmm.
had to, you're Catholic,
She was
so
trying to love him through it, I guess, and hope
yeah.
like for the best ending, you know?
If you come from like a religious background, then you probably definitely understand that.
Yeah.
Then, especially when you're young and you don't really,
You fight for your marriage. It's taught in religion to fight for your marriage. Things get bad. Not everybody talks about the bad parts about marriage, but that people can get through it, and
whatever
and
it is, it can be fixed.
mhm.
Whatever it is.
There's nothing that's impossible with God, but they don't ever tap on abuse sometimes. That's a very it's kind of things like, okay, if he did it once, you can forgive him. And this is a religious thing too in families and Latin families. Like a lot of times, religion and the Latin community family separate in this type of situation of abuse, but you're taught religious wise in a Latin family to be with your husband, get through it. If it happens once, you forgive him. And if it happens again, you continue to start to try to get help in counseling or whatever in this. And if it continues, then you seek separation and then divorce. And I feel like that's just not even protecting those women. You know what I mean? Sometimes you
Yes,
get the family where the father would tell you, well, what did you do wrong as a wife? What were you doing that he had to feel the need to whoop you? Like he loves you. That's why he did it.
yes,
And then they get stuck in this train of thought. Now we don't really know what she was told, but we do know that the woman that she nannied for said that she was really wanting to work on her marriage so that it could work out. You know what I'm saying? So she obviously
yes.
loved him.
And so, one thing I wanted to touch base on, like when he was telling this story, like his body language was like way off. Like he was like holding his arm and like just he would just repeat weird things in the interview. Like he would repeat like the interviewer.
I feel
But
like
there
his
was
demeanor was kind of off too.
so yes, exactly. So this is what one of the comments said. She's like this. She's like that. The mere fact that John Bobbitt smearing whatever and finally points out her supposed flaws says a whole lot more about his actual character.
His
That
character.
is actually like a narcissist. He thinks so highly of himself, therefore thinks
Yeah,
he can
but
do
he's
no
so
wrong.
quick to.
Yes, and so
Yeah,
he
and
can do.
mind you, that's his wife.
Mm-hmm.
Here she was trying to hide the abuse, work on things, confide in her employer that she's trying to work on things. Like, I feel like this was just, I don't know, like, I feel like she was very naive and maybe just him thinking, I got me a good bra. Like, she's very young. She doesn't know too much. I mean, he was young too. I mean, he was only 2 years older than her, but I've met people who are 2 years older than me and think that they know much more than me, and I'm like, "What?"
Yes, it's just
Like,
it's
I feel like maybe he knew what he was doing too, you know?
like she would talk like this is what they also said like you know the meantime like Lorena's actually talks about like specific situations scenarios and
Mhm,
events that took
mhm.
place like not just smearing his character altogether. Anybody else like see that big difference like just because of that he just seems very guilty, and I was like everybody
Yeah,
would
she has
believe this
specific
plot.
times and dates and occurrences that have never changed. They are the same story. People who
Yes.
psychologically talk to you about, being a doctor and the mind type of doctor will tell you a person who's been abused or essayed or any type of that type of situation will always remember it like it was yesterday. And coming from being a 5-year-old child being essayed,
Yeah.
I can remember the smell of the room. So
Yeah.
I know that when I read that in the psychological books and all this stuff, and I talk to my therapist, it is true when they say that because somebody who's been hurt, it's like a stamp in their brain, especially if you didn't get justice. I didn't get justice. She got her justice. Like, I mean, not, I don't mean it by like what she did. I'm just saying like they both went to court for it and things like that.
Yeah.
But like she has these occurrences in her mind and she remembers specific events that happened when she's trying to explain that she's not this crazy woman and he's just here trying to smear her name. He never wants to talk about the dates. He never wants to talk about what happened, but he just wants to not talk about it and just project on how bad she is. And like you
Yeah.
said, it's a very narcissistic thing that he does.
It's like I don't know, but so just remember how young they were. They were young, 20, 22. And so there were witnesses that said, like, Lorena, like, they would say, Lorena, these witnesses that said, like, Lorena would hit John, and then there was opposite ones that would say John would hit Lorena. And it's just,
Mm-hmm.
to be honest, it's just not equal. It's not.
Yeah.
You know
Yeah.
what I'm saying? Like,
Like I'm not for any type of domestic abuse. Like I don't think a woman should hit a man. I don't think a man should hit a woman.
right.
I don't think that either one of them should not be able to hold on to their hands. You know what I'm saying?
Just this
At the
tiny
same
little
time,
thing, you know what I
yeah.
mean?
At the same time, I mean, I don't care how women like what is it, feminists or anything that this like may come off. I don't mean to be that way either. You guys, I want you to know this. I'm a very understanding person, but a man who has been trained in the Marines will hit harder than a woman who is just married to him.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But
I think even if she was trained in kung fu or something, I still know that his hand is heavier. He's a man. Men are actually made to be strong, to provide, to do any type of carpentry. They are just naturally, universally stronger than women. And when they're angry, it becomes a whole nother level of dangerous. I don't think
yeah.
that it's right if she hit him. I mean, in self-defense, you have to do what you do. You're in survival mode. But I don't think either one of them hitting each other for fun was something that they actually intended to do. I think it was just one of those things where they got so angry and they're young, they're angry, they're probably toxic and they're fighting. But I just know he knew better coming from the Marines that he's stronger than her, you know?
And so, but it was just crazy. So the police would go to the home so many times, like he would
Like
so many times, like. But
they were
he
known
was
to be that couple who fought all the time.
yes, that's what I was saying. I'm like, oh, the toxic, you know. So the police would go to the home, and but only once was he charged with battery and assault. Only once. But those were dismissed because he would have to agree to go to counseling. So he did, and those were dropped. But on a separate note, Lorena would get into trouble herself, actually. She got caught shoplifting dresses at
Mhm.
Nordstrom because she would need to the dresses to look good for John. Otherwise, he would look at other
Mhm. Yes, I did see that. I saw that. At first, I thought it was trying she was trying to keep up with her lifestyle, um,
Yeah,
but then when I read into it and what she confessed to was that she felt like he was always a looker
yeah,
and that he was trying to make sure she was beautiful so he wouldn't look anyway.
yes.
Remember, this is her first boyfriend. She doesn't know anything about relationships, only what her parents have shown
What?
her. And, you know, I
Yeah,
feel like I thought that was kind of I think it was very honest of her too to be honest about it. But like,
yeah,
yeah, she did get caught for shoplifting, trying to buy really nice dresses. And I think he even said that was one of the fights that they had when he was throwing her dirty laundry out there. He was like, yeah, well, she got caught stealing and, you know, buying all these expensive things. And she's like, I'm doing it to make sure you ain't looking at nobody else, you know?
yeah. I'm like, girl, priorities.
Yeah.
But like in October, she was caught actually stealing from Jana, sh from her friend, like the one that she looked up to. You remember that? Remember
Yeah.
that? So she stole around like 7 grand, and instead of firing Lorena, she said she would have to pay her back with interest.
Hmm.
Um, that was so nice. What a good,
Yeah.
good,
She
good,
could have gone to
good
jail and got
friend.
her visa pulled.
Like, you know, like she could have fired her. Like I probably would
Yeah.
have been like, listen, you're gonna pay
I
me
think
back
just
for
after
your
her
fight.
being her employer for a long time, like she just kind of was trying to understand her as a woman, you know?
Yes, so
It was a very lenient thing for her to do, to just ask her to pay her back, you know?
yes, and so Lorena, she gets she gets pregnant, right? She tells John like, "Oh, I'm so happy, we're having a baby," and he was like, no, you need to get an abortion."
Mush,
And
mush, mush. Hmm.
abortion.
Hmm.
He's like, "We can't afford this baby. Like, if you have the baby, I am going to get skedaddle."
Split. Yeah.
And she thought, okay, I don't want to raise this baby by myself, so like I'll go. So Lorena thought the baby would make things better, but John didn't. He was like,
He was like, no kids, no, no, no.
yeah, and
It
it was
wasn't
like,
even like he, like what she says is that like, it wasn't even like he even thought the good part. He was like, no kids, nope, or I'm leaving.
no way, not now. Mm-mm. And so she was like, man, she felt the pressure because she's like, I'm Catholic, I'm not supposed to do that, but I don't want to raise the baby alone. So she did it. She went and got a much more blah blah blah. What she said.
Well, you know, when they went to have the shmishmortion, I saw this in one of her interviews that she was saying that he was taunting her, that the procedure would kill her. But he's the one who took her to get it done. He's the one who was telling her, like, I don't want this baby. You need to have a shmishmortion. But then she explains in one of her interviews that while they were there, he was taunting her at the clinic about how the procedure is going to kill her. Like, you're already forcing her to get a shmishmortion. Now you want to taunt her about it?
Wow.
And
See,
then
I didn't
he
know
was
that.
literally telling her, it's going to kill you. It could kill you. It could kill you. Like, are you hoping or are you affirming or what is that? You know what I mean?
Right?
That's really odd behavior.
That is really odd. So, well, she ended up doing it. Um, John continued to like look for work. He could not get a job, and Lorena could not keep up the bills. So the home went into like a foreclosure.
Mhm.
They left the home and went into an apartment. Okay, this is where it gets juicy. Lorena said that John would start with like the physical violence and end with sexual abuse. Remember that? So she
Mhm.
knew this wasn't right. This is when she's like, buttons are clicking.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
she would tell him, like, okay, you're rape shimmy me. Okay, so now in 1992, this is an important year, there wasn't like a lot of help for like domestic violence. And there,
Mhm.
again, there's not a lot of info on it. I was kind of saying this a little bit earlier, like, she just felt really like embarrassed to talk about the sexual part of it.
Abuse,
So
yeah.
there's no,
Yeah, because, you know, coming from a conservative life and then wanting to having to talk about that's kind of
yeah, so
that's what
there's
you want to
no,
just put out.
right. So there's no hotlines, there's nowhere to go, there's no shelters. So
Yeah.
Lorena stayed. There was a tiny piece of hope. Like, I think in the back of her head, she was like, I want to save my husband, but yeah, so she would try to call the police for help, but they never helped. Now, they separated again in like we're still in 1992, so they separated, but then they would just come back and say that, like they would say, she would say like, oh my gosh, I got this all messed up. They threatened her, and he would just tell her like, you can't divorce me. Now,
Yeah. So
she
when
did,
she okay, so in this time, we're 92, right?
yes. So
Okay. In
this is
92 is when
when,
she got her own apartment though, isn't it too?
yes. So
For
we're
the
getting there, but yeah, we're getting there. But she did end up buying like a tape recorder just to kind of like record some of these arguments. And I'm like,
okay.
yes. But John ended up finding it and like tampering with evidence. So she, he should have got in trouble for at least that. But she did talk about it with her friends, and she had a friend that came to her and gave her like a little pamphlet, and that really stood out to her because it was confirmed everything that she was going through.
Mhm.
Like, and then her friend Jana was like, I could just see her shaking, and I just knew something like was off. But
Mhm.
around this time, he tried to divorce her, but the story is so back and forth. Like, I'm trying to be unbiased, but like, bro, you know what I mean? So let's get to the okay, more juicy as we go on. It gets more juicy. So 30. No, okay, hold on. Let me write that down. Okay,
Wait, I have a
so
question, just so that I'm kind of like right here with you guys. Um, what year was he trying to divorce her in? Was that in 92 or 93?
90. Okay, so this is like it was around. We'll say summer of 93. So
Okay, because around that time, around June, I want to say she actually, okay, so this is the thing. This is what some people don't know this, and I actually found this out too. That's why I wanted to throw it in there right here around this time, the time frame, the timeline. So around the time where he's starting to, well, this is, okay, so this is like he said, she said, but it is documented that during the time when you say her friend gave her the pamphlet, she realized what was going on, and she began the process for filing a protective order. And then I
yes,
think he may have found out, and that's when he was like, "Well, I'm going to divorce her so that doesn't look bad on me,
yeah,
Yes. So I did find that out. That I know that while he was trying to divorce her, she was actually in the middle of or like had already began the process for filing a protective order. So it's questionable on did
yes,
he do it because he found out he may get in trouble, because Marines do get in trouble like in they have a whole different system. But I did
but
see that while he was trying to divorce her, she was trying to get a protective order. Like she wasn't even worried about the divorce. She was like, "Can I get a protective order first?"
right. So that's what they told her. Like so. This was June 21st, 93.
Mm-hmm.
Lorena goes to the police station and files a protective order. She was leaving. She didn't like the problems. The police station, they said, give it, it'll be done by like the next day. So she slowly started moving her stuff. Like now she was still living with it. Um, so the morning that everything happened, it was in the home. His
Mm-hmm.
friend Robert was going to be moving in as she was moving out. So there, whatever, like the divorce thing, I don't know if it was filed, but so they're just kind of switching, I guess. So Lorena comes home from work, like, because that morning she had, like, after that, she had gone to work. She gets up. When she comes home from work, she's tired and she goes to sleep. And since now the guys are like, yeah, get divorced. So they, whatever reason, they went out to go drink. And they're acting like grown dudes drinking.
Mm-hmm.
Anyways, they come home around 3 a.m. dead time. She wakes up because John slammed the door shut. Lorena said he was drunk, and Robert said that they were hammered. Like the best friend was like, "Oh, we were fucking hammered,"
Yeah.
while John was like, "No, I wasn't really drunk because I was driving." This gets good though. So he came in trying to like hold her down, and like he did as many times before, uh, and she got pissed. She got to get mad. So she started screaming at him, saying, "This isn't okay. This is not right." But John,
Giving her no means no moment.
yes. And what did John do? What did John do?
Right.
He rolls over with his blanket, and he's like goes to sleep. He's like he said told her that he was drunk and tired, and she was just yelling at him. After he said he wasn't drunk, so, like, bro, you drunk or not? You know what I mean? Like, pick a side. So,
Yeah. And mind you, she's been with him for a long time. I'm sure she knows what her husband looks like when he's drunk.
yes. So she goes in the kitchen to get a glass of water. Like, but while she's in the kitchen, she looks and sees a knife. While looking at the knife, she becomes enraged. Like, oh, son of a bitch. Thinking about all the times that he took advantage of her. She
Wait,
just, mhm,
real quick. I just want to make sure we put these people in their mind frame of what she was in. He comes home drunk. He attacks her, and Lorena says that he raped her on the apartment in the apartment that night. She claims that he raped her after, and she said no, and he continued, finished, got too tired, and fell asleep.
mhm,
Now, as adults, which I hope everybody's listening that's an adult, we all know when a man expresses his after completion, he's tired. So this guy's drunk, which his wife obviously knows, and he says he's not. He gets drunk, does this. He thinks it's okay. She's saying no. He still does it. He gets tired. He rolls over like a man. And she goes to the kitchen to breathe, to get some water. And then she sees this knife.
mhm.
And she's literally freshly RAPED and trying to get her mind and her thoughts back together. And she sees a knife.
She's like, this
And
stupid son of a biscuit.
yeah.
So, yeah, she says that she just blacks out. And she went into the bedroom and they said snip snip. This sounds, you know,
Yeah, some of these articles say that she cut off her sleeping husband's pecker penis.
but
Like they really explained that he was so tired. He was so see he explains he was just tired. Okay. What she explains is that he was drunk, did it, got finished, went to bed, and so she gets the knife, in the middle of the kitchen rage, whatever,
yeah.
and she goes and cuts it off while he's asleep. He stayed asleep the whole time she cut it off.
Oh, this is what gets me about the whole thing. So she goes in there, she cuts it off, and she says she doesn't remember doing the crime. She just remembers like looking at her hands and she sees a knife in
Seeing,
one hand, and they called it a sausage, but I was like, let's call it a tootsie roll. Um, so she throws, and she's like, probably like, ah, and she throws it out the window,
mhm,
and it goes into a field, and so she throws the. I can't. I got confused. She said she threw the knife away either in the dumpster or trash. I didn't really catch that, but then goes to Jana's house because like, shit, what do I do?
she doesn't know what
Uh,
to do. Yeah, she goes to her first friend that she can confide in. Yeah.
oh my
It's
gosh, I
like she's
can't.
in a panic is what she explained. She's like, I don't remember doing the act, but then I just remember kind of waking up out of my trance, I guess, and seeing that I had a
It's funny because
private
she's like,
part and the knife.
like, like, I don't know. There's children. It's just weird. But anyways, so John wakes up because he feels liquid around his no area,
Hmm.
and he says it took him a minute to realize his EP was gone. He wakes up Robert, like he just gets up from bed and he's like, "Oh, I'm not drunk, but where's my septic tank?"
Yeah, he sees what happened. He panics, like most men would.
I don't know if he was panicking though. The way that they were telling the story, that he was just kind of like in a daze, you know. Maybe he lost too much
Is
blood.
this really going on? Maybe.
Yeah, like disoriented. So he wakes up
Okay.
Robert and he's like, "Hey, take me to the hospital." And at first, like when he gets in the hospital, they thought that he like cut his wrist or something, and he had
Yeah.
like but then he pulls back the blanket, and then they were like, oh, oh my, you know.
Mhm.
But like obviously the police got involved. The police was able to go to the field and find his Twinkie and
Yeah,
put it.
Lorena's friend actually urged her to call the police. Like, okay, so Lorena gets to her friend's house. He's over here waking up, and Lorena's friend is like, you really need to call them and let them know where you threw it, because I mean, maybe they can reattach it. Her
Yeah,
friend is thinking logically. She does wind up calling the police to tell them what happened, and she does tell them where it is. So while he's already being rushed to surgery and all these things, we do find it where she said it was. And
yeah,
we see that now he's going in for the reattachment.
right. So, and it's funny because they put it in like a hot dog container.
Yeah.
And it was, they said it was the perfect cut. So they reattached his junk. They did the surgery. They said it was just like attaching the nerve. So it was a really smooth surgery. No
That knife must have
bumps,
been real
bruises.
sharp for it to have been such a clean cut.
Yeah, I'm like, how do I get my knives like that? You know what I mean? Like,
I mean, yeah, because like, I mean, after hearing about how it was, think about it. It was she took it out, she panicked, she threw it out the window. There's dirt, there's bacteria, all kinds of stuff. She takes off. By the time she calls the cops, it's been a while. You don't know if ants have gotten on it or whatever. Then they take it in a hot
exactly.
dog box, which is so funny to me. God forgive me. I'm like, it was funny for me when I heard that part. They put it in a hot dog box,
I know. I
and
was,
then they reattach it clean because they say that the cut was so clean. So I'm like, oh my gosh.
but they weren't used to this kind of stuff. You know, they were like, they had never seen this before. And this
Yeah,
was the first time in history for a woman to do that. So that's why it was
yeah.
like super, it
That's
was,
why it was so like all over the place and in the news and everywhere.
yeah. So yeah, the media got a hold of it and they just, they ran with
Oh,
it. You know, they went
while
wild.
he's yes. Okay, now while he's being in his reattachment surgery moment, Lorena's friend takes her to the hospital to get a rape kit. So I don't
Oh,
think many
good.
people knew that. I don't think people knew that while he's getting the PP reattachment, she's over here getting a rape kit in the same hospital. Like,
Oh, I did not know. See, I didn't really get her side of like
oh
after
my
that,
God.
but they did
Yeah.
say that the DNA was on the PP, and
Mm-hmm.
so they were like, "You did do what she said," you know, like,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and in court, I seen that little clip where he was like, "I don't remember," and I was like, "Bullshit, bullshit."
Yeah, I was yelling at the TV when I was watching that one. I'm not gonna lie, like there's a big percentage of men in the army or in that type of line of
Mhm.
government that have been accused of things like that and gotten away with it because they have their own court system. And
Yeah,
there's women who have been raped by multiple men, and those men have gotten away with it. Now, this was very taboo back then. It was very hush hush, and it's still hush hush now. But I feel like he when I watch the interviews where he's like, I don't remember doing that, I feel like he's very arrogant and I feel like he's hiding something when he says it. Like his demeanor is just off when
yes,
he talks about not knowing and what he's doing. You know what I mean? Or what happened or why she would do that to him.
yes. And then also, I was really hoping to have like Carly here because she has all these like weird fun facts. She's, she's like, uh, there. I can't remember what the first porno. He done two porno videos. I can't remember what the first one's name was, but the one that stood out to me was Frankenpenis.
Which one?
Frankenpenis.
Oh.
I was like, gross, no way, ew. But there's been people that bought it, so that's a whole thing. But that is the story. Things that just went on after that. You said that she started her own like company for abused women. She was a she's a survivor and advocate for women's abuse.
hmm hmm
So
So apparently, I guess when they both went to court, like I just want to throw this out there because I just thought about this. Um, so after everything happens, right? Because this is still a small town that they're in. Like this is still considered to be like a small town thing. But I mean, this has never been seen before in the media anywhere in the United States that
yeah,
somebody cut off the penis. Um, I came across something that said that they both had their own like charges being against each other in court. Like her
Yeah.
saying that he raped her, him of course for what she did, and that it was just like, okay, so they say that he was found not guilty for the sexual assault in their marriage, and that she of course, although she admitted to what she did and all the charges or whatever, like that. Like it was still something that they say that she pleaded for insanity in the moment, and that she didn't have as much of time given, or like I don't even know, like a conviction. There it is, not
Yeah.
that big of a conviction because her lawyer pleaded insanity for what she had did. So
Well,
like it's kind of like this crazy thing where like they both know what each other did. Something really bad happened. One gets off, the other one admits it, and now it's just like, okay, we're both going to live our life.
yeah.
And then she becomes an activist for battered women in marriage like that. But I mean, she did continue up in her salon days too. Like she did continue working in a salon as well. Like I noticed that she did keep that job, and she never moved. She never moved out of the town. She says, "Why am I going to move and let him um, make it look like he ran me out?" So she stayed there, and then she started to, like you said, advocate for battered women in marriages and battered women in general.
I wonder if he moved.
I don't know if he moved or not. I just remember them saying that she said she was not leaving, and she never left. She's still in the same town where it happened.
Oh my gosh. It's a hot mess. Mm-mm. But if you are feeling unsafe, then now you have a lot more resources. If you need resources, just send us a quick email and we will be glad to send you some resources.
Yes, no matter where
Right.
you are.
Resources. So, but we are going to kick this off and say goodbye. And don't forget to watch our live. This,
Yes, I hope you enjoyed it, guys.
yes, we're going to start going lives on Sundays, I believe. So keep us if, and it's always recorded. If you can't catch us then, you can always catch us next. Our next topic, I don't know where it is. Hold on, let me pull it up. Give me 2 seconds. I'll tell you what's next. Ah, let's see. Okay, so if you missed the last week was like women serial killers, and that one gets pretty juicy. But the next one is our Valentine's Day murder week, and we have Bonnie and Clyde live on our next one. So that one's gonna be a lot of fun.
Oh yeah, I
Subscribe
look
to my
forward to that
channel.
one. That's a very old one everybody knows, but I think it's gonna get good.
Yes. All right. Yeah, I hope you have a blessed and fun day. Stay out of trouble, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and follow, and keep Carly in your prayers, magic, and thoughts.
Yes.
All right. Bye, guys.
Bye.
Oh.